here again when that. Tana here again, Squawi, Squayati Sai. Tana here again, Hawaii, again, that would at no hen you hick. Ne, Kanyos, Kata never war to name Qua Niku.
The words are spoken in the Onondaga language and offer a prayer of thanksgiving, a prayer which goes back to the founding of the Iroquois Confederacy. It gives thanks for all creation, from the lowest to the highest, and can take up to an hour to recite. Roughly translated, here is a short excerpt. Let there indeed be gratitude. It is coming to pass as our Creator intended, and give it your thought that we may do it properly. We now give thanks for the springs, the brooks, the flowing rivers, and the ponds and lakes, and our minds will continue to be so. The speaker is Chief Leon Shenandoah of the Onondaga Nation, one of the 6 nations that are part of the Iroquois Confederacy. The League was initially formed by 5 Indian nations around the early 1400s in what is now upstate New York. Shenandoah holds the title of Tadadaho, head chief of the Onondagas. According to the rules of Iroquois government, that makes him the head of the Iroquois Confederacy.
How important is the oral tradition to your people?
It's very much, it's real important because actually we're following instructions. We were told, us people that walk on this Mother Earth, from Mother Earth we must give thanks to the Creator for everything that He has given us.
To learn more about the oral tradition of the Iroquois, we spoke to 2 other people, Chief Jake Swamp of the Mohawk Nation and Marion Miller of the Seneca Nation. We began with Marion, who is 75 years old and has continued the oral tradition as a storyteller. We began with the story of creation.
Long ago, there was nothing down here. It was all water, just all sea. And there lived here the sea animals and birds, but up overhead was a sky dome. And maybe you've noticed, if you look up in the sky, how it's like a huge inverted bowl. Up there was another world, and there lived people and animals and all kinds of things. And there was a great tree that grew right in the center, which is pictured on my skirt here. The celestial tree, it was called. And on the top of that celestial tree was a huge flower that gave light. It was like the sun. And that's the only light that there was there. Now there lived up here in this village a chief, a great chief. And his wife was old. And so he wanted to marry a younger woman. So this younger woman made 24 loaves of cornbread. And this was a proposal. This is the way the Seneca proposed. And they are presented to the husband-to-be, and if he eats the bread, they're engaged, and then the ceremony takes place. So he had married this younger woman. But in a dream that he had, he dreamed that she was unfaithful to him, and she had been seeing a much younger man. So the next day when he wakened from his dream, he was very, very angry. And he went out to the celestial tree. He wanted to do something drastic, something terrible. So he uprooted that wonderful tree, and there was nothing there but a big hole. And as his new young wife looked over to see what was down there, he sort of gave her a little nudge with his knee because he was a little angry at her anyway, and down she went through the hole. But as she was falling, she grabbed on each side, and there came away plants in her hands and seeds, and these she clutched in her hands as she fell. Down below were all these sea creatures swimming around, and there were the birds too, and the duck happened to look up, and he said, "Someone is falling. What shall we do?" And all the others looked up and said, "Oh my." The sea turtle said, "Well, I'll give my back. If you will bring up some earth to put on my back, they can put her there." the swans way up high in the sky were flying, and they said, "We have such a big wing spread, we shall catch her with our wings and break her fall. And then when you get the earth on your back, turtle, we shall gently lay her down there, and when she comes to, she will be okay." So this is what took place. All the animals took a turn diving way down to bring up earth to put on the back of the turtle. And they didn't make it. Most of them died, didn't even come up. Some came back up and floated dead on the water. At last there was only one little animal left, and that was the muskrat. And he said, "I will give it my utmost. I'll do my best, and I think I know right where the earth is." So he dove down with all his might, and after quite a long time, he finally came back up, and he had earth in his two tiny little paws, and he put the earth on the back of the huge turtle.
The Iroquois believed that the back of the turtle was the foundation for the earth. Even today, they refer to North America as Great Turtle Island. When the Sky Woman fell to earth, she was already pregnant as a result of her marriage to the chief of the Sky World. Sky Woman bore a daughter, and in time the daughter was impregnated by the West Wind and gave birth to two boys. One was called Good Twin, the other was called Bad Twin. They have also been called Good Mind and Evil Mind. According to Iroquois tradition, they created all the good and evil in the world. The story of creation is filled with fantastic imagery from the world of dreams. The story of the formation of the Iroquois Confederacy is more closely related to history, but it also involves the fantastic.
Long, long ago, way up north in a Huron village, there lived a young maiden. And one night she was visited by the Creator in her dream, and he told her that she was going to give birth to a boy, a son, who would be a wonderful person in the world, would help people far to the south who were fighting and killing each other. And he was going to be instrumental in bringing the peace to them, and they would become a great nation because of his efforts. And the girl woke up the next morning, and she ran and told her mother about it, and her mother was shocked. "Why, you aren't even married," her mother said. "You can't have a baby. It'd be a disgrace." And the girl said, "But the Creator told me this wonderful story, and we have a duty to him to help save these people." But her mother wouldn't listen. She grabbed her daughter by the arm, and away they went way out into the forest, away from the village, far away where no one would ever see them. And she built a small lodge, and that's where they lived until the child was born. Well, after the child was born, the grandmother tried to figure out a way how she could get rid of it. She thought, well, I can't just really murder the child. That wouldn't be right, but I must get rid of it. So one day when her daughter was out of the lodge, and it was in the wintertime, dead of winter, when the river was frozen and the ground was frozen and covered with snow, she grabbed the baby up from the cradle, and out the door she went, and she ran to the river. And she made a big hole in the ice, and she threw the baby in. She said, "There, now that will get rid of him. I won't have to be ashamed anymore." She went back to the lodge, and she walked in. But here was the baby, all safe and sound in his cradle, and she couldn't believe it. She thought, I must be dreaming. I can't believe that baby is well and alive. Well, it went along a while longer, and grandmother thought, well, I'm going to try again a little later. So the next time the daughter was gone away from the lodge, grandmother grabbed the baby up, and this time she went into the forest. And she made a huge fire. She gathered up all kinds of leaves and sticks and branches and everything and made this huge, huge fire. And then she threw the baby in, and she stood and watched, make sure it would catch fire and burn. And it did, it burned. And then she made her way back to the lodge again. And she walked into the door of the lodge. Here's the baby laughing and gurgling, and waving its hands, very much alive. And she thought, I must be losing my mind. How could this happen? Well, that night, she had a dream and a visit from the Creator. And he told her, stop trying to kill that child. because he is going to do a great service for mankind. He is going to the south and save a great people. They will become great in their time. And this is something that has to be done. And you will not meddle anymore, or something might happen to you. So this scared the grandmother, and she didn't do any more, try to get rid of the child. Well, the child grew up into a very smart young man, and he knew many things that mother and grandmother wondered, how could he be so wise and know all these things? But of course, this was from the Creator, from the great power the Creator had given him. One day after he had grown, he came to his mother and grandmother and said, now you know I am going to make a journey far to the south, and I probably will not come back. So I shall never see either of you again. Now I am making my white stone canoe, and I will travel across the great lake here, and I will be gone forever. So they bade him goodbye, and he traveled far to the south. After he crossed the lake, he sort of went in a kitty corner, sort of headed toward the Onondaga territory there. And he was very tired from his journey, so he lay down and concealed himself into some bushes. And he heard this dripping of water. He could hear this water sort of splash and dripping like, and he peered out, and there was a lake not far away, and he could see this man coming in a canoe, paddling, and he was coming to shore, and the man got out and beached the canoe, and he sat down, and he took beads out of his pouch, something that looked like beads, and he was weaving them, in like long belts. And the peace messenger thought, well, this man doesn't look dangerous, I'll speak to him. So he came out, made himself known, and told why he was here, and the young man introduced himself as Hiawatha. And the peace messenger asked him what he was doing with all these beads, this purple and white beads. He said, I am weaving belts of the laws that we are going to have when we stop fighting and become peaceful and live together in a large group.
The belts were made from wampum beads, which were carved from freshwater clams. Wampum was considered sacred by the Iroquois and was used to commemorate treaties and important events. The Hiawatha belt was an invitation to join the Confederacy. The 5 designs from left to right represent the 5 nations of the Iroquois people: the Seneca, Cayuga, Onondaga, Oneida, and Mohawk. Later, around 1722, the Tuscarora would also join, but it would take Hiawatha and the Peacemaker a long time before the original 5 nations made peace with each other.
Hiawatha and the peace messenger went to visit the Mohawk Nation, and they were the keeper of the eastern door, as we speak of them. And Hiawatha introduced the peace messenger, that he had come with a great message that would help all the Iroquois people. So the peace messenger took an arrow from his quiver, and he brought it forth, and he held it up this way, and he said, this is one nation. It will represent the Mohawk Nation.